Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 354. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined on this episode by longtime friend of the show, Darrell Taylor. Jim's actually on vacation, and Darrell was kind enough to fill in. On this episode, we're going to be discussing books like Superman Unchained #1, Talon issue #8, Red Hood and the Outlaws Annual #1, and Earth 2 #13. It's a very packed episode, and we're glad you can join us. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, you can pick up the American Vampire Anthology #1. I am a huge fan of American Vampire. What this is a great oversized collection of brand new stories. First of all, from Scott Snyder, but also Becky Cloonan, Gabriel Ba and Fabio Moon, Jeff Lemire, Greg Rucka, Gail Simone, and many, many more are contributing stories to this wonderful anthology of American Vampire, which is just great. DCBService.com is your comic book pre-order source. They are also a comic book digital partner, which means if you are a fan of Comixology or Diverse Media, you can link your accounts, and out of all your purchases, 5% of that will go towards a DCB service order. It's a great way to build up credit. If you do most of your shopping digitally, one of the cool things about that is you don't spend any more money, but that credit that you're earning can go towards a trade paperback, a hardcover, some single issues that maybe you're like, oh, I'd like to get that in floppy, or maybe that isn't being collected digitally. And this is kind of a cool way to do that. So, and if you're already a DCB service shopper, please make sure to link those accounts because that credit goes right towards your already amazing discounts anyway. So I want to thank DCBService.com for being a great comic book pre-order source. Over at InStockTrades.com, they have these cool sales that they run all the time. And they have the DC Archive Edition titles. For any of you that like Golden Age material and Silver Age material, these are available. These are hardcover volumes that are available at 50% off. They also have the New Year's resolution sales that they always do. It's 45% off for DC Comics. So this is really a cool way if you like collect editions. Like I'm looking at Solo. Solo was a really cool... What DC did was they released this series, and every issue of this series was devoted to an artist. And that artist would do like an anthology-style set of stories for that issue that was totally driven by them. So it was a variety of stories featuring your favorite DC characters done by this artist. So it was a really cool experimental series. This is only $27.49. So do yourself a favor, like if you're looking for that special trade paperback or hardcover of something that you've always wanted to read, go to InStockTrades.com and save yourself some money on them. So that way you can actually get more comic book reading in, which I'm always a big fan of. And you're sponsoring a sponsor of just a lot of podcasts out there, which we really appreciate from them. Oh, James, just what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into the plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're going to be discussing on today's show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Oh, no, you don't!
Darrell, one of the things that I want to make sure we shout out in our discussion before we begin, I'm a big fan of Dave Wachter. The Guns of Shadow Valley. This has been something that he's been doing as a webcomic, and I've been a fan of his since his Scar Tissue days. I met him for the first time. Comic Geek Speak had him on, and he was talking about Scar Tissue, and I got an opportunity to pick up the book from him at the Old Mid-Ohio Comic-Con, and just such a nice guy and an incredible visual talent. But it's like the band's gotten back together, and they've been doing this really cool webcomic. I'm a Western fan. And the story of Guns of Shadow Valley is this. Somewhere in the mysterious Shadow Valley lies a secret that could forever change the face of the American frontier. To protect that secret, a posse of gunmen with superhuman abilities must come together to face a tribe of ghostly warriors, an advancing army led by a deranged colonel, and the perils of the haunted valley itself. Set in the late 1870s in the Oklahoma Territory, this is a tale of intrigue and adventure that puts a new spin on the Old West. If you've never read this before, the great part about a webcomic and supporting a webcomic on Kickstarter This is something where they've got 100-plus pages already available of the story. They want to finish it. It's going to be a 200-page book when they're done. If you want to get on board on this, you can get on board as low as $10. $10 gives you the digital version, the DRM-free PDF, as soon as it's completed. And they're looking at like a February 2014 date for that. But for $10, like, you can get a 200-page book, which is amazing to me.
Mm-hmm.
If you go up to 30, you get the full physical, which I went for this. And they said it's going to be, it looks like they said it's hardbound, oversized. It's going to be around 250 pages, signed and numbered. And you get the digital PDF for $30.
Yeah.
You can't beat that with a stick. I mean, that's really great. The work speaks for itself. And that's one of the great things about supporting a webcomic, is that you can actually start reading this now to say to yourself, wow, is this something I can get behind and I can support? I'm a big fan of webcomic projects where, it's an opportunity for creators to introduce the audience to their work and to let the work speak for itself. But I do believe that it's up to us as fans, when you jump on board a webcomic that has an opportunity like this does to finish its final product, I think there's a chance for us as fans to, kind of keep that contract that we've made with the creators, that we're going to support their work beyond, that because we've gotten the enjoyment out of it. And they've put their heart and soul into this. Guns of Shadow Valley, there is not a page of it that does not show the care that has been put into this book. I'm a huge fan, and I do believe it speaks for itself, so I encourage everyone, go to gunsofshadowvalley.com. After that, go to Kickstarter. Make sure to check out the webcomic. It's gorgeous work.
Well, I didn't mean to plug again, but we had a chance, me and J.K. Woodward, we had a chance to have him on J.K.'s Happy Hour and just talk about the Kickstarter, which it's if you want to hear from him, just talking about the whole thing, because this was like the day or two before it was going to launch. So it's a project. It's a very personal project, and hearing him talk about it and how excited he is about it is, it's pretty cool. So if people want to hear from him and hear, the incentives and what, how he's working on it and all about the series, you can hear that on one of the episodes that we did. Most recent one, actually.
This will tell you, this just kicked off. It's got 30 days to go. Mm-hmm. It's got a $24,000 goal. It's already up to over $17,000 with 310 backers. So that just tells you, the kind of faith people already have in this project. The reason why I'm encouraging people, first of all, there's no way this isn't going to make its goal. I think that's fantastic. But what's really great is I want everybody listening to this that hasn't experienced this to have an opportunity to join in on the fun. Because you want this thing to go beyond the goal. That's one of the things I love about Kickstarter. It gives creators a chance to, afterwards, they do those cool little flex goals, after they've reached their funding.
Yeah.
And it gives them the opportunity to maybe think beyond their original concept and to add things into it that they didn't even imagine they were going to be able to. I love when I see a project like this get respected, because it says a lot about the comic book fan base and how much we want to support projects that have that kind of creative drive and just that unique feel. You really don't want to miss this one, because it's something special that you're going to want to say, hey, I was a part of that. And that's the cool thing about Kickstarter. It really is an opportunity to be a part of getting something published that we want to see. And it shows, I think this shows the strength of the fan base of the comic book medium, the fact that this is just kicked off and it's almost already there. I think that's great.
It is. It's totally great. And he, Dave is I've known him for years, and he's one of those guys who just works hard. Like, he does sketches. Like, he's not somebody who's ever worked with the big two, so he's had to get his name out there from going to cons and work, and doing a lot of sketches. And he does, he did the webcomic, and now he's, gotten some stuff with Dark Horse. He recently did a thing with them, and I think he's doing another. He did a thing with IDW with I forgot the name of the book, but he just recently now really been getting out there and doing work with other companies. So to see him worked so hard in everything he's done to finally kind of getting recognized for it is something I really like and enjoy to see.
Watching him work and watching him sketch has always been a pure joy of mine, because he is not somebody who compromises himself. Like, he takes what he does very seriously. I've loved seeing his growth as an artist, because my experience, like I said, goes back to Scar Tissue. So the talent's always been there. But he's somebody that you can actually track the growth that he's made as an artist, and the consistency and the level of detail. Like, that's the one thing I love about, like, Guns of Shadow Valley. To me, Westerns, I love old spaghetti Westerns.
Yeah,
but what works for them has always been the mood and tone. That comes from the visuals. It comes from the music. It comes from the environment that you are pulled into. He pulls that stuff to life. I'm a big fan of Stephen King's Dark Tower book series, too, which kind of adds a supernatural twist to the whole gunslinger aspect. But the Guns of Shadow Valley team just gets it. And it just feels right. Visually, tone, atmosphere, mood, style. I've always marveled with comics, and it's one of the reasons why I know you and I share a lot of these beliefs in common about what we enjoy about comics. I always marvel at the fact that I can still get sucked into these books that are flat.
Yeah.
They don't have the advantage of having motion. It's up to the creator to create that sense of musicality, the whole thing, to add that sense of and visual movement and drama and sound effects and to make that all come to life, to make us believe that's happening even though it's not. This team does that with this book. So it's one that I want to give the highest possible recommendations. Why I wanted to start off with this, because it's a book and it's a creator who's very important to me. But the whole team really has just put together something that I think is really special. And I want everybody to have a chance to be a part of it. So, remember, $10 for the PDF. I mean, that's your bottom rung. So you get the book. The $20 pledge, you get like a digital bundle of their other work.
Yeah, and $30 you get you pay $30, you get the physical copy.
I know. So I mean, it's like one of the great things about Kickstarter is you can start at the lowest levels and you've got a product. Like, you've got something special that you're a part of. So I love that part, that, like, for anybody out there, it's very easy. I know people are on budgets and stuff like that, but wow. I mean, it's so easy to jump on board this project and be a part of it. I do encourage you, if you go check out the Kickstarter, make sure you scroll all the way down, because they show tons of artwork, from commissions to T-shirts to pages from the book to information about the fact that there's going to be stretch goals. And it's just really, really cool stuff and cool ways to just kind of manage your pledge. And I don't know. I just think it's really, really cool.
I do too. In the day and age of the Kickstarter, you hear so much about it now, but you get to see creators who've been wanting to do these projects that they just can't, they can't sell, at a big name company right now, to be able to just sell it, to people, knowing they sell it to the people that they know want it. You get the choice. They know every person that backs the Kickstarter, this is what they want to buy. So you don't have to worry about whether it's going to sell or not.
I actually just changed my pledge. I added $10 more because I did the book bundle. You get the $30 one to get the book. But like, if you add $10 more, you get the entire digital bundle of their previous material. Like, I loved Scar Tissue. I would love the digital PDF of that. So I just I love Kickstarter for this kind of stuff, because I was scrolling down just because I said to do it, and I saw that like for $10 more, I get that as one of the extras, if I just add $10 more to my pledge. So I did it because I like the material that much. So this is something I'm really backing, with my own money, because I believe in the project. And, Kickstarter is amazing for that. So I encourage people to please do it.
And you know what? The time it took for us to talk about it, I just backed it myself.
Yeah, it's an amazing project.
Yeah. It's so good. It's get them now, because I wanted to get that $32 one, and it's already gone.
Yeah. The one, was that the one with the badge?
Yeah.
I missed that one too, and I'm like kicking myself.
Oh, I want the badge. I wanted the badge.
Darrell, I want to shout out a book that we're going to talk about right now, Superman Unchained. This has been an anticipated one. The writer is Scott Snyder, Jim Leeds on pencils, Scott Williams on inks, Alex Sinclair doing colors, Sal Cipriano letters, cover by Jim Lee, Scott Williams, and Alex Sinclair. Chris Conroy is the associate editor, Matt Idelson is the group editor. Superman created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster with a special arrangement from the Jerry Siegel family, which that's a new thing, obviously probably hearkening to the legal issues that have been kind of surrounding Superman. I don't remember when I first saw that start appearing in the comics, but that's kind of cool that it seems like all of that's been worked out now. I hope for the happiness of all parties involved.
I hope so. I hope they, I want people to get creators to get the money they're supposed to get. I want creators to get their families to get provided for from, what they deserve to get from their contracts. And, I want to be able to keep reading stories by these characters.
What did you think of this bad boy?
I come from, when we talked about this before, we've had conversations about, some of the Superman titles, and some of my disappointment with the main Superman book, because, I'm a Superman fan too, and I just haven't felt that excitement, that just the enjoyment I used to get from reading Superman. It just I didn't feel it. Like, I didn't feel it in the other runs so far. I mean, not to down them, but the stories just didn't click with me. And when I opened this up on my iPad and just looked at, the beginning of it and getting the voiceover, you get to hear, you get to read Superman's thoughts. That is when it clicked with me. Like, I felt the what I love about Superman, I kind of felt that again early on in the book.
I stayed away from any preview material on this one because I just really wanted to enjoy, when you got Scott Snyder on board and you've got Jim Lee doing the artwork, I'm like, I know I'm going to really dig this because I've become, since American Vampire, I've become just a huge fan of Scott Snyder. So when he does it, I'm in.
Right.
Swamp Thing's been fantastic. His Batman work's been fantastic. Then, you get an opportunity to see him do something like this. I'm like, cool, get to see his take on Superman. I'm into it. So I had no idea that this was going to start with a strange visitor going back to 1945. I really liked that opening element, the visual, because it was captivating, but it was quick. Because really what we wanted as Superman fans, and I want Superman. I want to see what they're going to do with Clark. And it was a good 2-page introduction. It kind of does the James Bond thing, because I'm a big fan of the Bond movies, where you get that quick little tease in the beginning that gets you kind of, okay, where are they going to go with this? But then they jump to our guy. I loved the pacing of that. I loved the visual of it, because it was quick enough that it did what it's supposed to do as far as establishing, like a mystery that we're going to want solved later. But it was not drawn out too long where we didn't get to my guy. Because when we got to my guy, that's when the fun really began for me.
Oh yeah.
What do you think about the this idea of there being another Superman, and what do you think his background is?
I don't know. That's what I'm wondering. If it's somebody we've seen before, is it a callback to something we've seen in the earlier books, or are they going to go with Krypton? Are they going to go kind of with the whole Krypton thing? We already had the what was his name, the clone guy who wanted to pretty much take over the Earth, the one that went through time. What was his name? The
Hell.
Yeah, Hell. Yeah. Like, we already went through something like that, so I don't think they're gonna repeat it so soon, since we just went through that. So I wonder if this is somebody who is really, really from Krypton and came at the same time that that Clark came.
So now, what they're trying to say is that historically in the DC universe, the bombing of Nagasaki was this guy.
Yeah,
I that's cool. Not what happened to Nagasaki, but I like the idea that they go into actual world history and start taking events. Because I was always a fan of when Marvel did stuff like that with the Invaders, and the idea that the JSA was around for World War II. I liked the idea that they played around with history and would take villains and make them a part of these events. Because I love shows like Doctor Who. I love time travel shows. I like when I like when Star Trek's done stuff like that, where they've, a piece of the action and stuff like that was, some of my favorite episodes of Star Trek. I like when you take these characters that weren't a part of that time, but plug them in there and somehow make them the cause or part of those events, because you learn a little bit about history in that moment, which I always think is a good thing. I always liked that as a kid, but you also get this sense of these characters having a realism to them. They're a part of a reality.
Yep.
And, or a part of an alternate universe or an alternate take. And stuff like that, just in a 2-page, they really accomplished a lot of what I really like about comics and the way that they can be incorporated into the real world. What do you think about you've started mentioning this, the internal dialogue? Mm-hmm. What do you think it was about it that grabbed you so much? Because I agree with you on that. Like, that was one of the strengths for this, and I don't think we get this often enough. Really getting to spend a lot of time in Clark's head.
I don't know. It's just something where he mentioned Lana, and he mentioned Pete, and I could see the farm. He mentioned the farm and him. Both of them just playing as kids, and that's important. That's just as important to Superman as him, eventually being able to fly and having super strength and all that kind of stuff. That makes you feel like he actually cares about humanity, because he had the experiences that we've all had with playing as kids and having friends and things like that. So I think it kind of made it more genuine when I see Superman who will push himself to the limit to save people's lives, day in, day out. This is a tiring job. It has, even for Superman, it has to be a tiring job, that this is what you do all the time. You're saving people whether you know them or not. And so it's just those little moments just makes it, I don't know, just makes it a little bit more personal with him.
Yeah. And one of the things that I liked about that was you're taking this huge space event where, this overwhelmingly huge, because he's a speck compared to the size of this space station that he's trying to take down.
Right.
And you're framing this with a small town boy jumping into a hay pile.
Exactly.
I thought that was and just what that was like for him as a kid, how there was the same sense of wonder for him as a child. Like, the connectability there to, like, we could do that. What he did as a kid, we could have done that because his two friends were doing it with him.
Yep.
And that has nothing to do with superpowers. That was just kids being kids on a small farm. I thought that was great. And that being something that he's nostalgic for still, with everything that he's seen. The sense of wonders that he's been involved with, that was there. That part really, hit at my heartstrings. I think that stuff's neat.
Oh yeah, it always makes Superman. It always makes him more personal when you have somebody who has godlike powers. Like, what is the thing that we connect to? We can't connect to being able to fly in space and knock out comets and all that kind of stuff. But we can connect to. I love my mother. I love my father. I had friends that I care about. Those are things that you can connect to, and then when he goes off in adventures, you root for.
That full-size picture of him when he's ripping everything apart, and you see the close-up, and you see the suit, this is when I like the New 52 suit.
Yes, this was it.
That, to me, like, every artist who works with it, because there's a lot of them out there that really do the New 52 Superman suit well. Every artist that does the New 52 Superman suit really needs to look at this and see when it works. Because this is when it works. It's not, the armor isn't overpowering. Like, because you want to believe this is Superman. So the need, like, I love the backstory of the suit. That works for me. But I also don't want to feel like we're all of a sudden putting him in something that Superman doesn't really need. So the suit having a story works for me. But the visual of this, it's classic enough. It's got, like, the right elements of what worked for me in the original Superman suit. It's, form-fitting to the body. It doesn't feel like, he's wearing, like, 27 layers of armor. Because there's been a few times where I've seen this suit done where it feels like it's a little too much, if that makes sense. This doesn't. It's like, it's got the right lines to show you that it is that Kryptonian armor suit that we're talking about. but it's more minimalist, if I'm using the right terminology. It's sleek. I guess sleeker is probably a better word of what I mean. When it looks sleek to me, it looks cool. This looks cool right here.
Yeah, and you know what? I think I think Jim Lee did it on purpose, of kind of showing him twisting, where you see the symbol, you see the Superman symbol, but you kind of don't see that he doesn't have the red trunks, like the kind of not. We don't want you thinking about this as being the DC 52 Superman. We want you to think of it as just being Superman.
Seeing the film, and I don't want us to spend a whole bunch of time on the film, because we're both doing we were talking about beforehand respective episodes on the film.
Yeah.
But I think if we're going to talk about the suit, we might as well talk a little bit about this suit and the film suit, and does the trunk thing bother you?
It never bothered me. I mean, you notice it, so I know when this is not the, what version of Superman this is, but it isn't, it isn't something that did bother me at all.
Yeah, like, I think the same reason that the film costume worked for me, too. And I think the reason why is, I think the story-driven reason for both. Mm-hmm. I think both suits have this, obviously, the film... I don't know if the New 52 version borrowed from the film, or if the film borrowed from the New 52 version. I don't know which is the chicken and the egg in this one. I don't know. But I like the story element behind both. And again, going back to that sleekness factor, I think that's where it works for me. The trunks thing doesn't really have much of an issue for me. I don't know that it was necessary to remove them, but I don't know that I necessarily miss them now when it's drawn like this.
Right. It really, when you said classic, that's exactly what I thought of when I looked at it. Like, this is the first time I really, when I'm looking at reading Superman, so, after we've done the DC 52, it's the first time I'm kind of gotten that taste of, that feeling like I used to have when I read it, pre that, of him having that history, that iconic history of being Superman.
I liked the intensity of saving the guys on the space station, that there needed to be constant reassurance. They're in space. This thing is huge. And that was where I thought establishing the scope and scale of how large this space station was really important from the beginning, because there was really, with all the technology there and the security systems, there was a constant sense of danger, not really to Superman as much as to the fact that this guy's got to save lives, not just the innocents down below who could be hit by this space station when it comes crashing down, but also to reassure these guys that, hey, I can stop this and keep you safe. You need to listen to me. There's, certain things that need to happen here, and you've got to be following my voice, because I'm going to make this happen. Well, and yet I also felt like at certain points he needed to convince himself so that he would keep fighting on to give that extra oomph to it, because right. I liked that it didn't feel like it was easy for Superman. It felt like there was real danger that Superman had to overcome. That's important to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, couldn't you see? I could just hear his ma and pa saying to him, as he's growing up, that don't lose your connection. Like when he's saying, reassure them, Clark, because you do it to yourself when you're doing something, or there's a there's a situation, a dangerous situation, or something like that, and you think to yourself, all right, my wife is a little upset. Make sure that you calm them down, or you're around children. And you're like, okay, be there. You give them encouraging words. At the same time, you're trying to think of how to fix a problem. Like, you handle it all the time in school, at your job. Like, you say to yourself, you can't just get caught up on just fixing something. You have to think about the other people in the room and kind of help them. And I love that he's saying to himself, Clark, reassure them. Make sure they're okay. Don't, they're scared. They're scared. Don't forget about them. Like, you're saving their lives, but you make sure that they feel safe. That's the difference between how Superman saves someone and how Batman, for instance, saves someone.
And that, I liked the intensity all the way through of Superman needing to be aware of where everybody is at all times. It's not an easy job. I think sometimes writers forget that one of the coolest parts of Superman is when you give us a sense of just how much the guy is doing and what concentration's required of him, and just how much responsibility is put on him to think of everybody and everything, where a lesser person, and I'm not talking about powers here, I'm talking about the man who's commanding those powers. And there's a huge distinction. And when you show Superman in this light, at the end of all this reassuring, okay, Clark, you can breathe now. That just shows just how intense this was for him. Mm-hmm. At the end, to say, I pulled this off. I did what I want. What my goal was. I was able to accomplish this. But there was a worry along the way that if he forgot one element of it, this could go horribly wrong. I loved that. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I really eat up as a fan.
Well, that when you have good, I think of if I had experiences with good firemen or EMT workers or police officers. They don't care, the good ones, they don't care about just dealing with whatever issue it is. They talk to you. They keep you calm. Those are things that you remember, when you're in a dangerous situation or something. You remember the people that did that. Like, everything's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. You're going to be fine. I'm here. That's how Superman is. Superman is the guy that reassures other superheroes when he's in the room.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty critical,
mm-hmm.
For him to be that person. I like when he's thinking through all this, that he's got to think about who is behind this. And, this is establishing terrorist groups, and
mm-hmm.
that there's different levels of terrorist groups with different levels of abilities. And Superman needs to be constantly aware of what they are and aren't capable. This is the reporter side of him.
Right.
This is, it's one of the cool things about Superman. Like, why does he care so much about investigative reporting? Well, this gives him a know as far as who's doing what are not just what he's reporting on, what are other people around him reporting on? And who are their sources? Where are they getting their information from? These are all things that Superman can use to be one step ahead of solving something before it happens, something that could get bigger and escalate. I mean, they brought down 8 satellites, which with huge impact there. He needs to start gathering info.
Right.
Like, what are they going to do next? If this was the opening salvo, what are they going to do next? And that's the part that I really liked about all this sense of this story is going to progress further.
Yeah, he wants truth. Whether it's not a comfortable truth. Like, how when I remember hearing you talk about on the show, you and Jim talking about the Dark Knight Returns, how the media really didn't care about what's the truth and what's not. That's not Superman. Like, they did establish this early on with Clark, is that he cares not just about getting a story, but he cares about the story itself, the truth of the story, and the people that it affects, because he wants to inspire positive change.
And that's really an important part of Superman. Superman needs to be that agent, in my eyes, that agent of constant change. And I like that it doesn't always... I think the best Superman stories are the ones where it doesn't always go right for him. And he has to figure out how to overcome that. He doesn't give up. He doesn't surrender. He goes back to the drawing board, uses the information that he knows in order to keep moving forward. It's something that I think is unique about the character and makes him somebody who inspires us as readers to not give up. Because we all have bad days. We have things that don't go well. And
right.
when you can read a story about a guy who, in these overwhelming odds, is meeting with Lex Luthor, and that he went there first thinking, if this guy isn't involved, he's gonna know who, or he's gonna have a way of an angle for me to look at this that's going to be a little bit different than how I'm gonna see it, because I just can't think the way this guy does.
Yeah.
And I love the meeting of those two when you have a situation like this, because Luthor does, in his own mind, want to save the world. He doesn't want Superman to get credit for it, though. And that's always the funny part about when Superman works with Luthor. Luthor has to decide, how can I manipulate and use Superman so the world doesn't fall apart? But at the same time, if there's a way to use this event to make Superman look bad, I'm going to do that. because people will finally see what I know. And that's where Luthor's crazy like a fox, because you can't trust conversations with him, which is great.
No, and that's the difference with it, which you have to stick with. That's the difference between Superman and Lex. Like, Lex looks at everything. He looks at numbers. People don't matter. Like, he doesn't care 30 people died or 30 million died. Doesn't matter to him. All it is he sees a problem, or he sees something, a goal he wants, and he just makes it happen. Superman, on the other hand, he doesn't see us as numbers. He sees us as individuals, as people, and we're important to him. Even to the point where when he fights other, villains, they can't comprehend why you would care about these people. Why do they matter to you? You don't even know them. But to Superman, everybody matters. And that's the difference. That's the thing that it gives us the, as Jim would say, the hoorah moments when Superman does something like save lives. Like, not even punching or beating up a robot or something. When he saved those astronauts' lives, I wanted to cheer for him.
I like the New 52 Jimmy Olsen. Like, because it goes back to, I think, what are some classic elements of Jimmy Olsen. This feeling, because, you've taken him back to an era where Jimmy hasn't been doing this for years and years and years. Jimmy's back to being, kind of the intern, the photographer, the guy who, like, is kind of more behind the scenes. And the friendship that he has with Clark, I've always loved the idea of Superman's pal, Jimmy Olsen. And I think that friendship works really well in kind of the reverse sense, where he's more the friend of Clark now. And seeing that relationship between the two of them and how he becomes kind of a sounding board for Clark. But it also gives us, I think this gives us some great insight to Clark's ideals.
Right.
When Clark is talking about, just certain elements of, his thoughts on the human angle piece and covering for Bruce Wayne and, like this whole thing with the Daily Planet wasn't about sticking it to them. There was a certain point to be made there. I like just kind of the insight of getting to know Clark this way. It's something, I think you're talking about the connectability of Clark Kent and Superman in this. And I really felt it in this issue. Like, I'm getting to know Clark here. And these are all things that I've seen in the New 52 already, but the way it's being delivered here and the relationship that's being established with Jimmy and Clark really is just strong here. And I love those elements because his supporting cast is important to me.
Well, this, what mattered with him? Like, the way that Jimmy has kind of been portrayed in the main book, he's kind of been kind of a moocher and he's shown to be kind of selfish. He has that girl at his house, at Clark's apartment, and he kind of, using Clark's stuff. And like, it was funny, it was little funny things, but you kind of go, why would Clark even want to be friends with this guy? In this first issue, I like that Scott Snyder made it a point to give you the first impression of Jimmy is that Clark is his boy. That's my buddy. That's my boy. He might have quit. And, I might get in trouble for being here, but I don't, but still, I'm going to be here for him. And because that's what friends do for each other.
Yeah, and I think that's something that is pretty important to me, the idea of friendship and understanding why Clark associates himself. Like, when you see him talking to Lois, like, you get the respect level that he has for her. Mm-hmm. She's back to being a reporter. But she's using her experience there and telling Clark what mistakes he's making. Like, he values her opinion. She's not trashing his story. She gets what he was going for, but she's also saying, hey, the fears that people have. Why didn't you acknowledge that in your story? I'm with you. They didn't do it. I'm not saying you should say they did. But why is there nowhere mentioned in your story that people are worried about this terrorist group?
Right.
Like, that stuff I eat up. Which, if you had told me growing up as a kid, you're going to get into this bit where they're talking about, like, the kind of news articles Clark should be writing, and you're going to think, but that's the kind of stuff that adds a realism and an atmosphere. It fleshes out something that just could be, okay, these are both people that work as reporters. Well, in and of and on its own, it's not interesting. But when you have these two debating that, and you start to feel for what Lois is like as a person, and the respect level, you can see why a guy who's dating Wonder Woman is still interested in her. Like, you get this. That is an important establishment here because, right now this big relationship is that he's with Wonder Woman. We've seen that. But it's been pretty clear that he still has feelings for Lois. And these moments show us why. And I need that as a reader. If you're going to make me believe that this woman is the one that, he really is in love with, you got to show me why. These moments do that.
Well, yeah, that, and I do like that Lois and Clark, they call each other on things that, that if you're not as close to somebody, you would kind of not do because you don't want to cause a conflict or something like that, or you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But in this, Clark is thinking, I don't want to cause fear. I don't want to bring attention to something that would cause fear. I just want to show the truth. And Lois is thinking, you have to look at the overall picture and acknowledge everything. Like they come from different places, but they still want the truth out. They still want to get the truth out. And that's what I think makes it work because they complement each other on that. And I think that's something that is important to show to people why he cares about her so much and why she cares about him.
Yeah, and that's pretty critical to me. I actually like Perry standing over her shoulder and just the sense of everyone having an involvement. Nobody's a throwaway character. That's really important because I think sometimes in comics there's been eras where people haven't understood the importance of supporting cast. And they've really been background noise versus being a character development tool. Here, they're a character development tool on both sides. And I think it's really important it's why, why do certain movies, when they're comic book related, stand out for us more than others? It's when they don't forget these characters that make the character's world feel alive and breathing.
That's so true. And I love... Perry is not just a boss. You can have bosses that they really don't listen to the people that work for them, and because of it, some things get missed because they're the people that are in the trenches every day while you're in your office. Perry, what makes Perry different than that, like somebody like a J. Jonah Jameson, for example, is Perry does listen to people. He is a stern boss and he's strong. He's strong-willed. But he does listen to your opinion. If you have an opinion on something, she's telling him, we need to move this here, move that there. He could have sat there and just said, no, I'm the boss. You don't do it. But he listened to her and he kind of, he opened his mind to it. And he's like, okay, you're right. We do need to put this, out there. And she worked and she listened to him also when he said we need to put these, advertisements there, which this should not make any, we shouldn't even care about this stuff. On paper when you think about it, but it all is important to the Superman mythos.
Yeah, the ad was the greatest thing in the world. The ad for the glasses, and she's even, I like that in passing she's apologizing to Clark because he has them, the turtle shell glasses. I thought that was great. But this whole conversation serves a storytelling purpose too, of she's making Clark realize, hey, in investigating this, there are parts of it that you're missing. You need to open your eyes and see every angle. Mm-hmm. And when he does that, there's that moment where, she doesn't know she's done it, but she made him catch something that he missed about the other satellite in her commentary. And he's realizing that, wait a minute, there's something, how is that possible that satellite was saved when I didn't do it? And where it landed doesn't make any sense. And I would know if the Justice League did it. It leads to this really cool underwater investigation that I thought was just such a great unfolding mystery. That's part of what I like about Superman too. The sense that he doesn't know everything and that there are forces at work that are aware he's on this planet and compensate for him and are prepared to deal with him if they need to. And there's this sense of morality that they all think that they have. They all think they're doing the right thing. General Lane, we got to go to him. Yeah. General Lane always feels like he's doing the right thing too. But his idea of the right thing versus Superman's idea of the right thing are usually very independent of each other. And I love how that unfolds in all this with the underwater base, and you see the handprint. Again, we know as readers that there was some kind of creature that came out of the sky. Not knowing what that is, you see that handprint there. This is now Superman being pulled into a mystery that we've known about since the first 2 pages. And I love that it took so long for Superman to catch up with us.
Right. Yeah, well, they come from it, and that's the thing. Even with the movie, I won't do spoilers, but even with the movie, a lot of mistakes that are made with the military and with Superman is that Superman comes from it from I'm trying to help, and they come from it from a sense of fear, and they should have fear because you have this guy who's lifting mountains. I don't know what he's going to do,
and that stuff's great, because these are people who haven't really given themselves a chance to get to know this guy.
Yeah, they've
always held him at I was going to say an arm's length, but it's really a semi-truck's length.
Sure.
If we could possibly see him with a telescope, that's probably what we're doing here. Because they don't want him to have a chance to know too much about what they're doing.
They're not wrong. I mean, that's the thing with Bruce. Bruce Wayne always deals with Batman. Batman does with Superman. He's like, I know you're, you say you're my friend. I know you're my friend. I care about you. We're brothers in arms. But you are the most powerful person on this planet. And because of it, you are a danger.
This idea, though, and actually this adds to me more of a sense why General Lane and certain people in the military that would be aware of this creature would be more wary of Superman. Look what they've been doing with this creature. Yeah. And with them knowing that it was a weapon, with them using the creature mentally as a weapon, they naturally would view Superman as a weapon. And recognizing that if somebody else got a hold of him, if he decided to turn on the world, he could be doing the things we've been doing with this creature all along. Right. I really like this storytelling tool here. Showing what would happen if Superman really was a pure agent of the military. What would happen there? I'm not saying all military officers would be like that. I don't mean it that way. But I think anybody in any form of power that could have the opportunity to use a weapon in a way like this, you could see why they would. This is something they could use covertly. It moved so fast that it couldn't be traced directly back to them in a way that they used this creature as a bomb, and its results were the same. So you think about it, you're going, there's a way that I could preserve the lives of the men under me, as many of them as possible, because when you send these people out in these situations, there's always a chance they can get killed. And we have a way of kind of, keeping more of them alive, at least, as long as possible or whatever. It's terrible what they did dropping that bomb, because you are taking lives when you do it, but they're thinking to end a war where more people can get killed, we can send this one, being in there to take, to stop it, and we can prevent, millions of people from being killed. I like the epilogue of this whole thing. I'm a big fan of these when they do them. Just a couple of pages that give us a little bit more story. I want to know what burned out. Was it that creature? This other Superman that burned out this guy's eyes? I don't know. Considering the fact that he was pulled up, from the ocean like he was, I'm assuming yes. How does this person, know, I guess it was a person at one point, know Lois Lane? And I'm just curious to see how this whole story unfolds. I like when there's a convergence of what's going on behind the scenes.
Right.
Or is this person connected to General Lane and recognizing that, I should go to Lois to report this about her dad? I don't know. I'm very curious to see where that goes. This is the great thing about this issue. It gave us a lot of action, a lot of story, a lot of insight into all of the main Superman characters, while at the same time feeding us like a great cliffhanger with, this Superman creature, and the fact that Lois is going to be brought into this mystery on some level.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how this unfolds. I mean, just a very, very well done. And I liked the interviews at the back. I thought that was really kind of a neat thing to do when you're kicking off a series. I wish they had more opportunities to do that with new books, where we get to see kind of into the heads of the creators. I'm a fan of that.
Yeah, me too. It's the little extras. With films, I'm like that too. Like I love to listen to a podcast or something where they interview the directors or something, because even if it's a film that you didn't like, you can hear from them the reasons why they made choices in the movie.
Yeah. So overall, this is a series that I was greatly anticipating. I know it's gone through a couple of name changes until they finally settled on this one. I like the name. I like the timing. Like this kicking off Superman week for me. I got to read this before seeing the film, and I thought it really just got me in the mode and mood for like more Superman, because it was really good.
I know. I can't. The Unchained part, I still don't understand why it's called Unchained. I wish they had just called it Man of Steel.
Why do you think they did that? Do you have any idea? I don't know what the name changed.
It's weird. I don't know, because even when people go to the comic store, they still keep asking for the Man of Steel book. They just swear that that's what, the name of this book is. And because people just can't connect with the Superman Unchained thing. They just cannot connect with it.
Yeah, I would have settled for like calling it Superman Man of Steel. It's if you want to put the Superman logo on it.
I'd be fine with that too.
I don't mind the name. It just was it seemed like the right time to have a Man of Steel comic book. Unless I guess, you could argue they didn't want to confuse people with it being different from the film. But I don't know that, I don't think people are... I think sometimes comic book publishers think the general public is more naive than they are.
I think so, too.
I think that, people get that, there's going to be some differences from the movie to the comic. I think people, know that happens with novels and things, too.
Mm-hmm. And especially when you know that, of course, you put this out because it's kind of close to the film version of Superman, kind of.
Uh-huh.
So you would think, well, people are going to say, well, what can I read what can I start reading right now that is, what Superman book that can I start reading right now that kind of will put me in the mind frame of the movie? And of course they're going to point to this. So why wouldn't you just name it Superman Man of Steel? Boom. Just go with that.
Would you hand this to somebody who's not currently reading Superman? Would you feel comfortable saying this is a good starting point?
Yes, I definitely would. Because it doesn't connect into anything else. It's not telling you this is from a previous storyline or anything like that. Mm-hmm. You get to see Lois. You get to see Jimmy. You get to see Perry. And, you even get to see General. You get to see Lex Luthor. But not... It doesn't overly... shadow anything in particular. It lets you see Superman first. You get to see what he's thinking when he's saving somebody. You get to see what he goes through. You get to see him interact with his supporting characters. So I think that this is something that I hand to someone who doesn't read Superman.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think the whole way you put that is perfect. I would definitely hand this to somebody else who has never read Superman, because I think there's something there for the fans that have been reading the New 52 material. It connects to that. These are the same characters, but it's not heavily reliant on past continuity, which I think is really important. There's a connectability for all of us, and I hope this book, because of its timing and it being a #1 issue, I hope this book is picked up by people who enjoy the film, just as a way to, because you don't see very often the films having a huge impact on the monthly comic books. Yeah. I would love to see this, the timing of it, and especially with two big names, this just be one of those books that maybe starts to break some of that mold, especially with it being available digitally.
Yeah, I hope so. I really do, because it's worth it. I mean, it's I think it's something even people who like me, who kind of were disappointed in the main book in the beginning. I think that I hope that they can go, let me give this book a chance and see how it is, and that can kind of get them back into reading this.
I know I said we were going to jump to Red Hood. Do you mind if we talk Talon?
Oh, definitely.
I'd like to talk issue number 8, but we can kind of do a casual chat about the backstory that's kind of led up to this one. The writer is James Tynion IV. The art by Miguel Sepulveda. Mm-hmm. Colors by Rain Barredo. lettered by Taylor Esposito, cover by Gilliam March and Tomeo More, and apologies for any name butchery there because I know I did it. Editor Katie Kubert, group editor Mike Martz, Talon created by Scott Snyder and Greg Capello. And this has been a book. I haven't had a chance. We talked about it on the show back when the Zero issue came out and didn't really have a chance to revisit it since. This has filled a hole for me, and I want to be very careful in how I word this because I don't want people to think that I'm looking at this as a clone of this. It filled a hole that's been left for me from Azrael. I like this kind of unique character in the Batman world that's very different than Batman. Different in his motivations, different in his reasons in being there. When Azrael first came on the scene, and he was meant to be a foil for Batman in Nightfall, and then we got an opportunity to see this character launched into his own series, there was something cool about the fact that he came from this whole order of St. Dumas. He had this background of being this kind of agent for them, this sword for them. And with the Court of Owls storyline and its rich history and the fact that this has been a group of characters that we've seen in DC's past in things like Jonah Hex, an all-star Western. They have a ongoing history. And to know that there was one of them who had an opportunity to reject that, to reject their orders before they were fully turned. But then to see as fans, when he was killed by Bane, I was like, no, they aren't doing this. I don't want to see him turned into one of them. I felt for him the way we should as readers. I've really enjoyed following his journey because he's a character who has a vulnerability to him, even though he can do these amazing escape plans. There's something about him constantly being on the run. You want to see him somehow be able to overcome and have a life with this woman who he's fallen in love with. Right. I think over the need to protect her and her child, and yet having to tragically keep giving her up and not being able to put the life together. We got to see a glimpse at what it could look like for him, and then it was yanked from him. I'm like, whoa, no.
That's his thing. That's what makes the character so... it just makes me care about him so much in that, even with the Superman thing where we go through, where he keeps pushing. Even when things get so bad, he doesn't give up, he keeps pushing. Calvin Rose is the same way. He constantly gets things taken away. He had no childhood. He found this woman and he made a change, a positive change to save her and the daughter. And he thinks that then maybe we can work this out and we could be together. All he wants is a normal life to, be with her, help her raise his little girl. And that's it. He doesn't want to be a superhero, doesn't want to be a vigilante. He doesn't want to defeat the big dragon, the evil dragon. But it's what's been put in front of him. He has no choice. And he keeps getting up. He never just says, forget it, I give up. He always just gets up. Even in death, he gets up. And he just keeps going.
And that's something that's really great. I actually liked her relationship with him, too. That, he was killed, but she recognized who she's dealing with and did her own little manipulation of saying, hey, the guy that, knows the information you want, you killed. It's a great opportunity for her to bring him back into the game. And she's clutching at straws at this point. I mean, her child's being conditioned by these people. And she doesn't know that. She doesn't know that. He does. Calvin, is seeing all this.
Yeah.
And, what is he going to do? How is he going to be able to overcome all of this? That's something that I immediately find engaging. When you've got a great character like this that's put into a horrid situation, there's something about that I immediately find engaging, where you get why he feels like, I've got to give in to them. I have no choice here. Maybe I was always destined for this. Can I really do this? Can I do this to keep them safe? Can I give up everything? And it's going to be very interesting to see him try to overcome all that. Because we've seen him overcome the Butcher of Gotham, I think, is just a great concept. We thought we knew everything about the Talons. No, they've kept one on ice. I think that stuff's great.
And he's not Batman. He's not the guy who doesn't feel fear. He's not the guy that has a a plan, like he doesn't plan 20 steps ahead of whatever thing he has to deal with. This is a guy, when he goes into battle, he's like, I'm scared out of my mind. But I have to do this because there are people whose lives depend on me that I care about, that I have to, take care of. So that makes you feel a lot closer to him, is that he goes through these things, he feels these fears, and he still does it. Like this is what happens. People go through this every day. When you're military or you're EMT workers or your police officers, they go through it every day. You're not bulletproof. You get shot, you get hurt, or you die. And he's the same way. He doesn't just come back from a bullet, right away like that. He didn't know that they were going to freeze him and then bring him back.
Am I the only one who didn't see the Sebastian Clark thing coming? Like, I didn't see that on any level. I thought, like, I saw the two of them having, like, a tough relationship because of the difference of opinions as far as their goals and what they were doing. I never saw the full reveal that Sebastian Clark not only was still with the Court of Owls, but he was the former Grandmaster and was using Calvin as a Talon to do this dirty work for the court.
Yeah, you know what? I did think that there was something wrong with him, but I thought maybe he was just crazy. I thought maybe he was a psychopath or something like that. Or, something like he wasn't I didn't think he was the freaking mastermind, the one that pretty much has destroyed Calvin's life. Like, I didn't know that he was the catalyst for all those terrible things that happened to Calvin. So that even made it more, when it was revealed, that made it even more worse. Like, this guy has been, doing all these terrible things, and just as the kicker, he made you think you're going to have a good life and just stabs you right in the back when you start to feel that way.
And that's something that was cool for me, because I like the way it was discovered. Like, because Casey discovered it. Mm-hmm. Because of the fact that she had to become so hardened and had to protect herself and her daughter, and knowing what her father had gone through and how her father was paranoid and he always put in back doors to protect himself, and she learned from that. These are all things that have been established through great storytelling. We've learned a lot, not just about Calvin, but about Casey and her history, Sebastian, his history. There's a lot of stuff that we've learned along the way as readers that have been really, really, and the court and their backstory.
Yep.
That I felt like a lot of the mythos that's been developed here has been stuff that's been really rich. So when we got a reveal like that, it all makes sense. Like, I loved the cool moment where she locked Sebastian in the closet, giving, enough time for her to escape. You got to wonder, looking back at that, like, if she'd handled things maybe a little bit differently, I think Bane would have gotten her. But, it would have been interesting to see if she'd handled things a little differently, if there would have been a way for Calvin not to have been killed.
I know. In my mind, the first thing you think is, damn it, I wish she just put a gun to his head and just blew him away because he's an evil guy. But, if he had done that, the things that might have happened, and they just would have killed her and Sarah right away.
Yeah, so it's such an interesting situation as far as, like, but here's where I care about the story. In rereading it, because I went back through, when you had mentioned that you wanted to talk Talon, I went back through from the beginning and just reread the whole thing. Because, we're basically 9 issues, with the Zero issue. And I just kind of wanted to go back through and enjoy the experience that way. And I found, like, I figured I was going to only do a couple of issues, like just go back to the beginning and maybe read the first 3. I found that I was enjoying myself so much that I just read through the whole thing again. And really loved knowing how it was all going to play out, seeing little clues along the way that, like, oh, I guess I kind of missed that, and it's kind of cool to see how that plays out, which is kind of the neat thing about the series, because there are little tidbits and teases along the way that might make you think of what's going to happen. It reads a little differently when you know where it's going to go. But that's one of the cool things about this book, I think, has been the establishment of the history of these characters. I'm not talking about the court, it's not just the court's longevity, but the idea that over time, the stuff that we saw in the Zero issue has led to Sarah and Casey having this journey where they got involved in this underground, where they were kind of developing a court of their own to overcome what had gone on. And how Calvin's being in the right place at the wrong time led to the destruction of that. Like the tracker, they had done such a good job of keeping themselves underground. And they had their world protected, but Calvin coming on the scene and trying to continue to bring down the court to try to protect them. Here's the funny part. Sarah and Casey, if Calvin hadn't chased after them, probably would have wound up just fine.
Yeah.
Because they were, far enough underground that I don't think, although it could be argued that they would have pushed the court too far and the court would have come after them anyway.
You know what? Maybe I would say maybe like a year or two from now, when the court has built, kind of rebuilt themselves, they probably would have said, let's tie up some loose ends because we can't have these threats lurking around. So they probably would have took them out. He probably would have eventually just sent, the army in there, and the Talons probably would have took them out. But it's still, you think to yourself, wow, if he didn't, he just stayed out of their lives, maybe none of this would have happened. Maybe the people that are dead wouldn't be dead right now. And that's the bittersweet thing about it. Like you're happy that they found each other and whatnot, but then at the same time you're thinking these horrible things that are happening, especially with Sarah. Like you're seeing her being reprogrammed, and this is definitely something that Calvin wakes up at night, nightmares he's had of thinking, like I would never want this to happen to her or any other child. Like that's another thing. Like he knows what went into this. He knows the pain of the abuse. These Talons were abused from children, from childhood. Their parents just gave them away in some points. Sometimes or their parents were murdered other times. And they're put into this thing and programmed to be these killers with no chance of ever, being a normal person or having a normal life. And, like he knows what she's in for. And that makes it 10 times worse for him.
What's going to happen to Sarah because of this? It's funny how, like, she's a character I'm like, what's happening to Casey with, the beating she's taking and stuff like that, I worry for her. But whenever you see a kid like Sarah being conditioned like that, like, even if she was rescued right at this moment, there's going to be an effect from this.
And she has, like, even with all the, being on the run, living underground, like, how's that is for a child to grow up not being outside, not being able to go out and play with kids and whatnot, but to be living underground, like, all the time. And still be bright and sunny, and she's smart and she's kind. Like that's another thing. Like James did a great job of showing, how kind this little girl is, and how she can be in a room full of, people, strangers even, and just show compassion like that. And that's what makes me really feel so bad when she's captured, because that's the first thing they try to get out of Talons is we want to burn that out of your system. Like we don't want you to care about anybody. We want you gone. Like that, the human part of you, any part of humanity that you care, you love people, we want to destroy that first. And then we want to put in all this, evil, hateful things of learning how to kill people and murder and all those kind of things. So, and it ties in pretty well to, if you're reading the Birds of Prey, and they added the renegade Talon into it. She's trying to get some type of a life back, and Barbara, Batgirl, she sees that, and she's trying to help her do this.
I loved that story. I liked the Mary story. I liked how that was incorporated into Batgirl, into Birds. Mm-hmm. I thought that introduction of that character has been a very strong. A lot of times, I know as fans, we, whenever there's crossovers and your favorite titles become a part of a crossover, there's sometimes like, is that necessary? I thought Mary is a great example of where, that was completely necessary. Look at what happened because, a book played in that sandbox. We got this really cool character that we got to get to know through her initial relationship with Batgirl that has now led to her joining the Birds. And I think that's a great way to bring a new, strong, interesting female character into the DC universe, because Mary, I think, is cool.
Yeah, and Birds of Prey has kind of been the book where you have these characters who are broken. Some of them are they all come into it kind kind of broken in some way, and slowly they heal from it, and through their friendship, they help each other to heal. And that's something that even in DC-52 they kind of stayed with, where you get a chance to get redemption, you get a chance to through camaraderie, you get a chance to better yourself and kind of try to make up for the things that you feel that you've done that are bad. And so it's a tragedy of putting Calvin and her in at odds with each other, because they're both broken characters who are trying to not, give into their past. They're trying to break from that and be good people. They're trying to do good. That's the sad thing about it. They're trying to help people. They're trying to do good again. They don't want to be, just killers who are, going out and hurting people and whatnot. They want to do better. And you still have the Court of Owls, these selfish, evil people who don't care about who they hurt. They don't care about, what they do. They're just sending these people out there to do terrible things, and they have to deal with the aftermath of that. So I think both those books kind of connect really well together, because it's just tragic. Because who do you root for? Because you don't want either one of them to get hurt or to die. So
here's the funny part with Calvin going after her, and this whole serum that dissolves the tissue that makes them kind of what they are. Mm-hmm. And I like that it was used on Nathaniel, the grandson of the O'Malleys, the one that kind of ended their line, so to speak.
Right.
He was the one that betrayed. Because I liked that aspect that each of the Talons has a family history that somehow is played into this. And for them, it was actually a point of respect. They wanted their bloodline to be the main Talon bloodline. Mm-hmm. They wanted to be the standouts, because that's how much they bought into the whole thing.
Which another thing is kind of tragic too, is that you have the son and the father's son, and then the grandson, and he basically, he feels that this is not making us stronger. I don't want to put another child. He refuses to have a child because he knows, I don't want another child to go through this. And Calvin kind of, he made him remember that part about him, because he still had it, but he remembered that humanity about him, where you cared enough that this is wrong. This life is wrong. That you should not bring a child into this. And Calvin kind of said, you don't have to be this way. You can do better. And I felt so bad when he kind of felt like, what, maybe I can. And you think that maybe that's what's going to happen, and they're going to get more allies, and it just goes horribly wrong.
That's a good way to put it, too, because that's the part where you feel for Calvin and wonder, he keeps saying to himself, this killing is going to be easy, and he's not sure that, because it's like he's giving himself a pep talk that he can handle all this,
right.
But now, he's faced with the real dilemma, am I actually lying to myself, or will it actually be that? And that's the part that I found interesting as well, this part that, I've been taken to this dark place so many times.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I think with this has really worked well for me. This sense of, how do you overcome this? And how do you keep going when you're faced with this constantly over and over again?
Right.
And I can't wait to see how all this plays out for Calvin. I've come to care about him in a very short period of time, which is pretty important.
Yeah, and he's not an established character. I forget that. This is a totally new character we're thinking about. We're talking about. This is a guy that just had only 9 issues of existence at all in any comic book, and yet when this book comes out, I want to know what's happening. This is the one book when I'm reading it, I actually feel emotions, when I'm reading it. And and that's comics, man. It can pull on your heartstrings at times. It can make you happy. It can make you sad. It can make you, it can upset you when something happens to a character. And you get all that from reading this book. And at the same time, that this is not Superman. This is not Batman. So you don't know what can happen to him. This book can end at issue 12, and it could end with him just being, killed. That's it.
Yeah, and that's something where I kept wondering if maybe this serum, on some level, might be used to resurrect, like bring him back to life. I don't know if you can. Like, I don't know you can go back from this. I don't know if there's a way to do it. I'm going to be curious to see where this goes, or if he's going to stay a Talon, or stay the dead Talon now with the new MO. I don't know. I'm going to be very curious to see what happens to him out of this. Is he going to avoid crossing that line? I don't know. Here's the thing. I'm intrigued by him. He grips me the same way the Azrael concept did, and I mean that totally as a compliment, because it's fresh, it's unique. It spins out of something that was Batman, but has moved so far beyond that, which that's a sign of a great concept, when the concept grows beyond its original intention.
Right.
A scarlet costume ejects from his ring, and in a blur of motion, police scientist Barry Allen becomes the Flash.
How you doing, Sean? Jim, this is Brandon calling out New Orleans again. Just a couple of little things to go on this week. I got cut off at the end of my little Green Lantern statement the last call there. I guess a couple of little things to finish off, probably where I was going with that, towards the end of the title, we were to the wrap up, and everybody, won, and we saw the betrayal of Sinestro in the Guardians, and we wiped the slate clean for the new guys. And then they let him go a step further after that. They let Johns do something that's not done often in comics, and he got to book an actual ending for the characters. And, I love that DC let him do that, I guess especially considering that he's like their guy right now that, they wanted. This was a title that he brought from nothing to, the main forefront. I don't think there would have been a Green Lantern movie without, Johns. He pretty much made that character as popular as he is today with him. He brought him back to the forefront, and he brought him from being evil to, he redeemed him. And, it's great. Would I want to see that with every, creator ending their run and being able to book an ending like that? No. I think this was, it was special, and it was definitely a special thing that he did with the character. So it was great that they let him do that. And even as he's ending it, he's still throwing hints out there to things to come in, coming years. He teased that Simon Baz is going to train the first female Green Lantern, which I'm going to go ahead and make an assumption here. He created Stargirl. Stargirl's in Justice League. She's going rogue right now. She's read the last issue. I'm thinking that maybe she might be the next candidate. That's just a wild guess I'm throwing out there, but I'm thinking the Trinity War, something's going to go on, and she might get a ring somehow. We'll see. I think actually there was, if I'm not mistaken, a ring still flying out there from one of the issues in the New 52. I'd have to go back and read, that went to Alien. I was supposed to get it, and it went away. I'm not sure if that ring ever went anywhere else. I'm pretty sure. So there's still a ring out there floating around, if I'm not mistaken. I think she might end up with that ring. But that was awesome. So anyway, I love what he did with the book. It was a great ending, great story. So awesome. But one more thing to touch on this week. I picked up a new book from Scott Snyder, The Wake, from Vertigo. Man, oh man, what an awesome book. If you guys are looking for something that's not, superhero-y, something else to try, this book was awesome. I'm a big fan of Snyder's work lately. I got back into comics right before the 52, and I've loved his interpretation of Batman, be it Dick Grayson or Bruce Wayne. He's had some great writing. I love the things he's doing. I've read some of his American Vampire work, and it's pretty good. But this story, it seems to be laying some groundwork for something kind of creepy and special. It's 2,000 Leagues Under the Sea meets Aliens meets The Thing. Some creepy stuff going on, but it's an interesting title, and I think people should definitely check it out. I wish that it seems to be, it's going to be an 11-issue run. I wish that DC would use Vertigo now. It seems that, they've dropped Hellblazer and stuff like that. I wish they would start using Vertigo as a way to draw in more creators, and giving them maybe little mini stories like this, because we know that they may be, we've heard rumors that they might be really hard on their writers and stuff like that, and the direction that they want them to go in, and the writers aren't feeling like they're getting their space to do what they want to do with their characters. So maybe if you just say, okay, listen, we're not going to let you go crazy with our Green Lantern guy because this is really what we want to do with him. But how about we give you a 5-issue miniseries over here to do whatever you want to do this year. And if that thing takes off, you can go and get a series out of that through Vertigo. And, I just think that Vertigo should be a place where they're giving their writers a place to create more stuff. I'm kind of going on a tangent here about it, but I love Snyder's work, and I've loved his interpretation of Batman. Like I said, good American Vampire work. This book seems to be going in an awesome direction. I definitely love the first issue, and I can't wait to see what they do with the rest of this little series. So kudos to them for giving them the shot to do this, and I hope to see more stuff like this in the future. So anyway, guys, great show. Keep up the good work. I love the Dark Knight episodes. I'm listening to the Strikes Back episode right now, and you're definitely giving it more love than I would. Dick Grayson is one of my favorite characters ever, so I guess when I read that thing, I was so ashamed. I haven't picked it up since the first time I read it, so listening to this show is refreshing my memory. I love the other Justice League cast in it too. Yeah, there were some good moments, but I guess I was so hurt by the Dick Grayson portrayal that I've never gotten past the story. But good job on the show, guys. Keep it up.
Your comments are great, and they speak for themselves, but there's one in particular that really stood out for me that I want to talk about real quick. Your ideas about Vertigo. It's kind of, to me, what's always stood out about Vertigo. Vertigo's been kind of a creative ground where creators have been able to tell the kinds of stories that are unique and interesting you don't normally get to see in comics. That's something that I think is great. It's been kind of like indie in a mainstream company. And, it was a chance for some of those creators to tell those kind of stories. And I want to see more of that out of Vertigo. So I'm with you. Your ideas of them being in minis or ongoings or whatever, that part doesn't matter to me as much as I would like to see more of that. And I'd like to see Vertigo pushed as being that. Vertigo has always been that cool line. It's been the one that has gotten people to go to bookstores and to buy the hardcovers and things like that. And I hope that doesn't get lost, because things like The Wake, you're 100% correct, they're eye-opening on what Vertigo really should be all about. So I hope we do get to see more of that, and thanks for calling about it. This is one of the things that's great about us getting back into some discussion about current comics, is it's the chance for us to kind of really talk about where comics are heading, where we'd like to see them head, what's working right now for us, and what we want to see more of as fans. So thanks for calling with that, Brandon.
Hey, how's it going, guys? This is Brandon calling out New Orleans. Calling today to talk about the big thing going on, the Man of Steel, the big movie of the summer. I went to go see the midnight release, and I was happy. I know it's getting some mixed reviews. I'm on the positive. I really enjoyed the movie. It's exactly what I wanted it to be. A really great Superman movie, but not as good as my Batman movies. No, not throwing punches, guys. No, I don't want to take jabs at all the Superman guys. But, it really was a great movie. And, it was funny how it was actually completely opposite of what the Batman movies were, whereas the Batman movies were essentially, Bruce becoming Batman and then breaking that down. This was more of, the journey of him finding himself as Clark, because I had more of the feel, a lot of people are saying he kind of seemed dull and dreary in the role, and I think, he just seemed Superman-y in the role, actually. He kind of, the whole movie seemed not necessarily above it all, but he had a presence to himself. And, there were definitely a couple of times in the movie where when he got to let loose and it looked like he was really, really enjoying himself. And the rare times where you saw it, you can tell he really enjoying himself. The flight scenes I particularly thought were, amazing. All of us have that dream of flying in the sky. That's a big dream of being Superman, is, of taking flight. And it was amazing the way they portrayed it, with the velocity and the speed and the camera angle right behind the fist. Oh, it was just the moment where he clenched his fist and he realized he could push himself, and it wasn't just him jumping, but it was more of him really propelling himself forward. It was just, man, it was amazing. It was epic. It was a great movie. Michael Shannon did excellent as Zod. He was pretty much what I expected. I wouldn't say he was the greatest villain ever. I think he yelled a lot, which was awesome. I think he did a great job. It was just, it was so much of that it was kind of hard to be momentous all of the time. So, but not knocking him, he did great with it. Definitely some cool moments with him. I hate to spoil it, and I'm not going to spoil it for anybody out there, but let's just say a big decision to be made, and I think, I'm iffy on it. I'd hate for it. I'm not even going to go there because I don't want to spoil it for anybody that hasn't seen it yet, because listening to the podcast, you might not have seen it yet, and I don't want to tell anybody to skip ahead, so I'm going to avoid the big thing in it. But let's just say the movie was really great, some awesome scenes, and everybody go check it out. In a couple of weeks, I hope you guys do a little show about it and spoil the heck out of it and give your opinions on it, because it was awesome. Yeah, I hope this brings about some more DC movies. You could definitely see hints of the Flash in there. There would be such a great Flash movie with the stuff they were doing up in there. There were a couple of little nods to Wayne Enterprises on a satellite, and definitely some LexCorp things. And I loved Krypton. And I called earlier and said the thing about Brainiac. There was no Brainiac in the movie, but there was definitely set up for Brainiac in the movie. It was written all over it. You had to have been waiting for it the whole movie. So I definitely think if they continue this, or if they go the Justice League route, we're going to get some Brainiac. So that's pretty awesome. Anyway, guys, take it easy. It's nice talking.
Actually, gave me a great segue into this. We're going to be doing in 2 episodes a very special podcast where we're going to be joined by longtime friend of the show and colorist, Art Lyon. And we're going to be discussing some of his comic book work, including things like Phantom Stranger. He was also a part of the Action Comics issues where they were doing that reimagining of Krypton. So I really want to talk about his feelings. He's going to be joining us to discuss actually not only his work, but the Man of Steel film. So it's going to be great to have a creator who got to so recently touch on some of the New 52 versions of Krypton and those changes, and we can talk about his views on Superman. And I'm very excited that we're going to be doing that episode. So that's going to be in 2 shows. And so we'll kind of be answering a lot of the stuff that you started talking about here. We also have a voicemail that was from a friend of the show, D'Angelo. And D'Angelo, if you hear this, I am going to air your voicemail, but it's going to air on that episode because you're asking some very cool questions that I think we need to discuss on that episode. So it's going to be in 2 shows. Just want to let people know that is up and coming. Jim hasn't had a chance to see it yet. I've seen it twice, and I actually can't wait. I'm chomping at the bit to talk about this. So Jim's got a family vacation that's coming up, so what's going to happen is he's going to see it during that. When he comes back, we're going to record our episode relating to it. So that's why I've got a couple episodes in between that I'm doing with some friends of the show, so that way we've got some cool content coming your way while we're doing that, including a Green Lantern episode, which is going to be our next show. So we got some cool things planned.
Hey, Sean, Joe. This is Brandon calling out New Orleans again. Figured got my movie talk out the way this week, get my comic talk in. Want to talk a little, couple of books. One, Green Lantern. I just finished the Robert Venditti books, with the title switch over. And I got to say, it was pretty good. Wasn't over the top great, but I definitely enjoyed both of the books. I like the direction it's going in. Some cool moments in both of them. I thought maybe we were going to get a little bit more Hal and the Justice League again and back on Earth, but it seems we're going to be getting, more of the same galaxy spanning, sci-fi epic universe stuff, which isn't bad, which is cool, and it seems to be he's got a cool direction with it. I have no idea why Larfleeze is attacking at the moment, what his goal is, what he's after, but I definitely love the spread when he's attacking. We see, if you guys are readers of New Guardians, Glami, one of my favorite constructs, is right there beside him. So he's back in the battle. I wish he was with Kyle. But anyway, so I love how those two books are intertwining again. We get a lot of Jon Stewart and Fatality and Green Lantern Corps and their relationship. No Guy Gardner, and no spoilers, because it's hard to spoil something that's in advertisements in the books for the last 4 months. Guy's actually going to be a Red Lantern. I haven't seen where that took place yet. I guess that book's going to come out. I don't know how I feel about it yet. I'm going to have to read it, because I was really digging, what we got before with Peter Tomasi and Guy Gardner, and I wasn't a Guy Gardner fan at all, and I wouldn't say I'm necessarily a Guy Gardner fan now. It was just I liked the background we were getting him and the layers we were getting to him before. So we'll see where that goes with him as a Red Lantern. But as for the two titles with the Green Lantern, I dug them. Salak, he was a major issue in the Green Lantern Corps, him feeling bad about not seeing everything coming and kind of stepping down from his role. There's a big shakeup in the infrastructure, and it's seen through both books. It's seen that Hal's obviously going to be the leader, and he doesn't know how to be a leader necessarily. He's done these great things, but he hasn't necessarily led these great events. He's just been the guy who wins it in the end. That doesn't necessarily make you a leader. That just makes you the winner. So, but I'm interested to see where these books go, and I'm definitely going to stay on board, because I want to know how they turn out. But anyway, one more thing, I picked up the Superman Unchained, because gotta love Scott Snyder, and I had to see what he was going to do with the book, and I loved it. I've recently jumped back on Action Comics. I called a couple of times about the run, and I was liking where it was going. And it's still pretty good. I like the last issue of that a fair amount. Not as much as 19, but it was still going in a good direction. And my big question for this book is, it's awesome, but if I'm assuming this is going to be another title that they've added to the line, and if so, why did they not just have Scott Snyder go to Action Comics, since it was looking for a writer to maintain that book over there? Because obviously this is great. If it's an ongoing series, I don't know what the gimmick behind it is. If this character that we saw at the end is, Superman Unchained, and we're going to see him forever and ever, and that's why the book's name Unchained. I'm not sure. I don't know what the gimmick behind it is, and I love it. So there's no knock on the book at all. I'd like to know why they're adding another Superman title and not just bringing a great writer to the other title. Anyway, that's my little throw for the week, guys. Great talking to you. Great show. Talk to you later.
I think they were probably hoping with the film that the Superman line would start pumping up the way the Batman line is. So I think that their thinking is they're going to be bringing a new writer onto Action. They're going to be, obviously, with everything that's going on there, and then Scott Lobdell working on Superman. I think with everything that they've been doing, I think they were looking at, what can we do to add something more to the line to kind of pump up the whole Superman universe. And this book, certainly, we talked about on this episode, certainly did that. So I'm very curious to see the directions of the other two books. For a lot of what you're mentioning, I think the direction that both Action Comics and Superman take from here, with Superman Unchained being out there, that's going to define whether or not this was a good idea to add another book. So that's something that we're just going to have to wait and see how those directions feel, and if it feels like that third book is necessary. because I would argue with the Batman titles that I'm enjoying those books right now. So I feel like those books are necessary. But whether or not we as readers feel that these 3 books are necessary will depend on the types of stories that are being told there, which is a lot of what you're alluding to. You know, making sure there's great creators on each of those titles so it makes it feel like it's worth it. So we'll see what happens with that. You know, when you were talking about the Green Lantern books, that's always interesting to me when new creators jump on a book. It's trying to see the directions that they take those characters in. I really enjoyed the first issue of Green Lantern with Robert Venditti. I've been enjoying his Exo Manowar over at Valiant, so it was great to see this writer jumping on and seeing his take on that universe. And I'm with you. I want to see how each of these other books, because I've been enjoying the line the same way you have. If they've made the right creative choices and they've given the right amount of creative freedom to allow a direction that feels very satisfying and good, just like the other one. I think what we're going to need a few months to get used to the new take and just to see how it feels. I have high hopes for it, though, because I want this line to continue to be interesting and exciting with the new creative teams that are there. I want it to be, if it's successful, it's good for us as readers, and it's good for the creators that are attached. I also want to see where the creators that were previously attached wind up being. You know, where we know what Jeff Johns is doing. Peter Tomasi, I want to see him on more because I enjoyed reading a couple books a month from Peter Tomasi. I want to see Tony Bedard. You know, these are creators who have just done a great job on the book. Peter Milligan, you know, I want to see what he's going to be doing. The creators that have been delivering these great stories, I want to see what they're going to be doing moving forward. That's always when creative changes happen. I'm very interested to see where they go as well. So I'm interested in the current titles and that as well. So it's interesting. We'll see what's going to happen down the road. But thanks again for the call. And actually, speaking of phone calls, D'Angelo, I just want to shout out you again. You called in and you did a message about Man of Steel that I really think is better served to save for that episode when we do it. So I'm going to air that voicemail in 2 weeks. We're still airing it. So if you get this and you're listening, your voicemail is going to be coming on the show. Anybody that wants to call in for any topic, the New 52, Man of Steel, anything you want to chat about, it's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. That's our show voicemail line. I air every voicemail that we get because I really value anytime you take the time to call into the show and to be a part of it. Voicemail is always a preferred method. I actually have a cool couple of email audio comments as well that I'm going to be airing on the next show. So there's a couple people that sent some email comments in that I'm preparing for our next episode that I'm going to be putting together this week. So please feel free to send those in. And our email address is ragingbullets@gmail.com. And please feel free to send anything to me that you would like aired on the show. To me, I love the community aspect of the podcast. And this is a great time to shout out. We have a great Facebook group. We're on Google+. But remember, our Facebook group is separate from our regular Raging Bullets page. And I actually did a Google Hangout that was put together by some of our listeners. And I'm going to be playing around with the audio of that. And I'm going to try this week to see if that's something that I can air. You know, if it sounds good, I'm going to air it. It was an experiment, and I'd like to do them again. Whether or not we air every one of them or just do it to hang out and chat comics, I just think it's fantastic. And I just love that the group does their own hangouts that are independent of me. But I thought it was great that they invited me to be able to be a part of something like that, and it was great to chat. And I'm going to keep doing those, whether or not we're able to air them or not. I just thought it was just a great opportunity to hang out and chat. I had a lot of fun, and I hope all the people that joined us had a chance to do that as well. So be a lookout in our Facebook group for when the next one's going to be coming, or on Google Plus as well, to be a part of that, because I think it was really, really great. We're also on Twitter. RagingBullets.com, I should say, is our webpage. So please, there's a lot of great ways to get a hold of us on the internet and on the web, and it's really just great to have this social opportunity with all of you.
Now I can get out of here.
Our next chat is going to be about Red Hood and the Outlaws Annual number 1, written by James Tynion IV, art by Al Barrienuevo, covers by Javier Mina and Bit, letters by Carlos M. Mangual, cover by Ken Lashley with Matt Yackey, associate editor Ricky Purdon, editor Eddie Berganza. Apologies for any name butchery because this has become a book, and I've really enjoyed this since its launch. It's amazing as I think the characters have shown growth, which there's been a lot of recently. And, spinning out of events like what's happened with Batman and the Joker's most recent story and that death of the family. and how Jason Todd and Roy and Starfire have had to grow as characters, and their vulnerabilities are being shown more, and we're learning more about the realities of what their backstory really is. That stuff I've been finding really, really engaging. Mm-hmm. And Hugo Strange's involvement in all this. I mean, this stuff has become really, really cool to me. This was a great annual. It was cool how like the issues led right into the annual. The annual now, where we need some meat and potatoes here of what's going on with Jason Todd giving up his memory, and stuff like that. It has been really, really great for me. What do you think about this book? Like, have you enjoyed this all along? Has it been something that's taken some time for you to gain some enjoyment of? What's been your history with Red Hood and the Outlaws, Darrell?
I jumped on it in the beginning. It was kind of my Michael Bay comic when I read it. You know, like it was all about the Flash, a lot of the action, explosions, gunplay. You know, like you have the back and forth with the buddy cop films. You know, like Bad Boy and stuff like that. They're arguing while they're surrounded by a bunch of people shooting machine guns at them and stuff. So it has that. It has the sex appeal to it. You know, you have Starfire in there. I kind of cringe at some of the Starfire parts. I always kind of cringe at that because this is not a book where you could say to a newcomer or just to a woman, you know, like you want, you know, women to get into comics too. And this is not a book where I can say to them, you'll love this and be confident that they would, because the imagery kind of throws them off. But I like those buddy cop type of adventures. So I did like it for that. And so I've been enjoying it that way. You know, I've had a good time with it. Not too much substance, more style than substance, I would say. But it's still fun. It was still a fun book.
I like your comparison to action films, because that's really what I agree. This is read like an action film. And I don't have a problem with that. I actually really like action films. I think that there's a place for that. I don't want every one of my comics to be presented that way, but this has had that. I think what I'm really enjoying about this, though, as the series has gone on, we've started to see more substance come of this book.
Right.
We've started to see, like, I love the stuff with Hugo Strange and Roy. Mm-hmm. Like, because we saw Jason have reasons to want to give up his memories of the Joker and what that's felt like. I don't think Jason had an idea of what this was going to play out like for him.
No, he didn't think it through.
And, you know, giving up your memory and becoming a clean slate, but then having to discover who you were and what your public perception is. Because a lot of what he's discovering is how the public views him. And can you learn to see past that, to see the other? Because I agree with what Roy and Starfire are saying. There's more to you than you're letting yourself see here.
Right.
And I've liked that argument that they've been presenting to him in this story, because there's a point to that. Because I think we as readers have had to get to know that other side of Jason that Roy and Starfire see now in order to get behind him in this series. And I think that's what has made him a character who, if you had told me a year ago, I was going to say, wow, he's becoming, you know, one of the more interesting characters to follow in the DC universe. I would have laughed. But he is becoming that guy, that Robin that, like, you're like, you know, I'm kind of into Jason Todd right now, and I am. I'm into the character. I think his appearances outside of this book have been fantastic. Mm-hmm. Seeing him in here and reacting to that consistently, because he's a character who had a lot of consistency issues in the past.
Oh, yeah.
And I think in the New 52, he's being handled very consistently. And there's been a lot of growth to him that is shown in his appearances elsewhere that I think has made him a character that's easy to follow.
Yeah, well, you know what's he's another one who every time you think he's going to get his act together, somebody comes along and pulls the rug out from under him. So, like, he went through the whole thing with Death in the Family, and then he kind of connected with Bruce Wayne again. Like, they went through in Batman and Robin, they went through the talk. They had to talk about things. Bruce kind of said, you know, I wasn't the best father to you. I could have been better. And he kind of, you know, and Jason said, I wasn't the best son either. And that was hard for both of them to admit to each other. And he even, you know, he gave him passwords to the cave and he said, I still trust you. and whatnot, and then you had the Damian dying, and then you had Batman pretty much whatever leeway was made, he kind of threw it away because he acted kind of like how other people have treated Jason, like he doesn't matter, like he's not important, and that, I think that also kind of adds to why he decided to do this to himself.
Yeah, there's a reason. Like I get where he was coming from, and I think that's part of the problem. It was funny. There's, I remember, was it Star Trek V? I think where Kirk kept saying, "I need my pain." Mm-hmm. It's when he was given the opportunity to give all that up.
Yeah,
and I think there's a point to that. We go through things as people, obviously not as much as Jason Todd has, but I think when you go through things and you come out the other side, those things change you a lot of times, hopefully, for the better. And I think we were seeing a Jason who was being changed for the better, a Jason who could have those conversations with Bruce.
Right.
Some of the internal dialogue that was going on there for us, I thought was really, really great to see it from Jason's perspective. And it's interesting to kind of see how that's playing out now. What do you think about, I know I'm kind of jumping to this, but Bronze Tiger, what do you think about what they've done? Because is he like really a tiger now?
Yeah, he is actually a tiger. He is actually morphed. Now, I don't know if he was always a tiger. That hasn't been revealed yet, if he was always one. But right now, he is part man and part tiger.
And I always loved the character in Suicide Squad. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be curious to see I think that's one where I need to see the backstory. I
do too, because I am a fan of the Suicide Squad, and Bronze Tiger was one of my favorites. He was that knight that was thrown in with a bunch of killers. Like he had some type of honor. Like Bronze Tiger was not a villain who needed a bomb in his head to make him do the right thing. He chose to do this, and he always fought against the darkness and with the other characters, and it was a fun book to read, man. Well, those stories were not fun per se, but it was just entertaining to see. It was just entertaining to see him go through his journey in that book and not lose himself, not lose his sense of honor.
Is Roy right to feel the way he does about Starfire?
Yes, I think so. Like, if you gave me I've told you my thing. Like, my baggage. Like, we're in a relationship. My baggage. My drug problem. My failure as a superhero. My fears. I've told you all these things, and you think I tell you this, you share yours with me, and then we have we can kind of have that bond. And, hopefully have a relation, a healthy relationship out of it. And she didn't trust him enough. Like, he trusted her, and she turned around and did not trust him enough to tell him the truth. So I can understand him feeling betrayed. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the cool things that I think about how this all has worked out is I get where the betrayals come from. Mm-hmm. And that's the part that I think has been incredibly interesting in all this was you almost don't know who to side with from time to time.
Right.
I feel for everyone involved in this. Like, I understand why Corey felt the need to keep the secret, but I also get why Roy feels the way he does. I think that's been the nice balance of this book, has been as we've gotten to know the characters more and more, there's been this sense of you can understand the creative choices that they've made, but we don't necessarily have to agree with them.
Well, yeah, it's like like in a relationship, you see it. You see two people do things that are self-destructive to the relationship, and you don't come at it as this person is wrong and this person is right. You come at it as it's just a shame that both of them are not trusting each other enough to not do those things, those self-destructive things, and that's what they're doing. Like, Corey's not a bad person. Roy is not a bad person. So it's kind of, you feel bad to see that they do like each other. Like, like this relationship can work. They do care about each other, and they do have that connection, and it's more than just the one night stand, which on the surface is what it was kind of revealed. You know, it was kind of shown as in the beginning that it was just that, but they've come from that. They've moved past that to the point where they really, really care about each other, and that's the kind of the tragic part of it, is that they do both care about each other.
And that's something that I think is interesting. Like, will these people ever be able to have, I'm talking about Jason, I'm talking about Roy, Corey, will they be able to ever have, like, normal relationships? Or will there always be that sense of distrust? Will there always be that thing that keeps them from fully connecting? I don't know.
I don't know. It could go any way. Like, I felt bad. I kind of liked when Jason had that date, and she went off to space with them and the whole thing, and then almost, gets killed with the Joker almost. And before all that, I kind of rooted for him because, she was kind of that, that kick-ass spirit. She had that way of talking to Jason, like, I know you're supposed to be the big bad, bad boy and all that kind of stuff, but that doesn't impress me. Like, what else can you do? Who are you really underneath all that bravado? And he kind of started to come out of that and kind of have a kind of a relationship. They were kind of becoming friends, as well as maybe going in a positive romantic direction. And then that kind of got cut short too.
I was glad to finally see more details on the history between him and Ollie.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they waited for this, because to me, it's a lot more interesting to know that something went wrong, to get little teases and tidbits. But now we're finally at a point where, with what Jason has given up, for Roy to reflect on his own pains and what he's learned from them. And I like seeing Roy kind of have his own, like, I think this relationship with Corey and Jason has put him at a point where he can't quite make peace with Ollie, but he's on the road to that. Kind of like what we saw with Jason's own internal dialogue. We've seen that this relationship, this buddy cop thing that you talked about earlier, has evolved into something more. And I like that evolution came from what was like, I like a very Michael Bay on the surface in the beginning. It has grown into something more. And that's something that's really important over time. I think this is where this book has increased over time in interest for me. And they've become three characters that I really care about. Like, I don't want to see a team change.
No.
I want to see these three get to know each other deeper. And I want to see others react to them. Like, it's great to see their reactions with Superman. It's great to see their reactions with Batman. It's great to see their interactions with the Teen Titans. It's really cool to see them here interacting with Oliver Queen. These are all things that I've wanted to see over time with them. And they mean more because we got to see a lot of buddy cop in the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. All that stuff is fun. I love all the action that we've seen in the book, but to have an ongoing title, you want the other stuff. Like, I want to continue to care about them, so I need to see, all the other, things about them, like dealing with their past and, and their fears and things like that. Like, Corey is this is a woman who will challenge Superman in a fight if she feels that she's right. But at the same time, she's scared to have a real conversation with her boyfriend about her past, her emotions.
I liked seeing Cheshire here. I liked that it was because Ollie came there. He became like the beacon.
Right.
And that choice to come there, it's like, don't you understand? You led some of them here. This is not, and that stuff was something that I really liked because I got it. I totally got where his concern was coming from. Mm-hmm. And that stood out for me.
Oh, yeah, it definitely did. It mattered.
I also like that she had a way to take out like, if I was going to do an attack, wouldn't you go after and take down Starfire right away?
You better. If you don't like being burned up in a fireball.
What did you think of Speedy 2.0, like Speedy, the original Speedy outfit? I liked that it didn't drop the ball cap, because that seems to be our new Roy's MO. Yeah. But I like that it was like a hybrid of the classic Speedy look.
I did like that. I did. It did have that. It had an innocent look to it, and it just harkens back to to Speedy, man. Even when you hear the name, it just fits. He's like, "What? I'm Speedy. What? What do you want me to say?"
The fight between Cheshire and Roy, and our knowing the history of what in the previous continuity went down with these two, that they ended up having a child together.
Right. And you don't need to know that to enjoy the fight. You don't need to know that. But for those of us who do, it was a nice little callback to that.
The hat going missing in the fight was something that was really great. Seeing Jason have to decide, like, he's in the middle of this fight. He's there when this is all going on. What do you do at this point? You know, because the fight's over him. He's the target. Cheshire's there, and Jason's trying to say, hey, I don't remember anything you're talking about. My memory's gone. So, you can keep blaming me for all of this, but you need to understand that, like, I just don't know anything that you're talking about. And now he's got to have this confrontation with all of them saying, hey, we were all killers. Not just me, you guys too. How on earth do you think I'm going to stick around and hang out here with you guys? I can't do it. I can't be a part of your world. It's not, you've lied to me. And in their own ways, they've all kept secrets from each other. How do you rebuild trust with this group? Do they all have to come clean with each other? What do they do at this point as a team to become something more?
I think they're going to have to trust each other now because it's... Everybody, like Oliver was trying to tell them, everybody is gunning for you now. You are on the list of a list of killers who are coming after you. You don't have time to try to cover up or keep secrets from each other because these secrets can get you killed.
I like the way that he snuck out. I like that he's still clever. Was able to sneak out by leaving with the underside of Ollie's vehicle. But I also like that we got to see there that Ollie's been using his position with the Justice League and his contacts that he's made as a way to protect Roy.
Right.
Like, he never gave up on him. And even though they've had, like, horrible confrontations, he still believes in this kid. He still cares about him. I need to believe that, too, because one of the things with the New 52 is you're taking a lot of these relationships that we've grown up enjoying, and you've distanced them. And legacy characters like Roy and Ollie, knowing that they have a history here, and seeing that, like, okay, I can get behind these two still being friends, like, at some point. I could see them, Roy learning about this. Or maybe Ollie always being this silent person to kind of protect him. This was a great ending where I felt like it stepped up my respect for Ollie, while at the same time stepped up my respect for Roy, which I think is really important.
Yeah, it totally did. Like, this, I needed to know that Ollie, cared. I needed to know that Ollie felt that he was wrong for the way that he treated Roy, and that he wants to make up for it. And his guilt is him trying to kind of watch out for him with because he doesn't know how to say it. He doesn't know, Ollie wasn't the best people person before the DC-52. So I can understand him not being the best people person now. And what's sad is what Roy really needed from Ollie was for him to say, I am there for you. Like, you weren't, your mistakes were not so bad that you can't come back from it. You can do better. Like, I know you can. He needed to hear that stuff from Ollie, and he didn't do it.
Yeah, and that was kind of the hard thing, too. I think both of them had things that they probably should have said to each other. That they didn't quite know how to say.
Right.
Can we talk a little bit about Earth 2, number 13?
Oh, yeah.
The writer on this one is James Robinson. Pencils, Yildiray Cinar. Inks by Rob Hunter. Colors by Pete Pantazis. Letters by Desi Siente. Cover by Booth Rapman Dollhouse. Assistant editor is Anthony Marquez. Editor is Mike Cotton. Group editor is Eddie Berganza, and definitely need to apologize for, like, the 7 gazillion name butchery that I did over on that one, because it's really a creative team that I really enjoyed this issue, because it's an issue that brings, the character of Citizen Steel back into the whole New 52 environment. And I've really enjoyed the way that Earth 2 has handled the introduction of characters. Instead of dropping everybody on us at once, they gave us like a small core group of characters that were introduced very early on. And then gradually along the way, as it's made sense, we've gotten to know more and more of the characters. This was a great introduction to a character. I loved his backstory. The whole issue focused on that. Yet I felt like it was also progressing the world that we've been enjoying reading. What has been your take on this book? Because we're 13 issues in and an annual. What has been your take on this book so far?
Well, I think what I loved about this is that how Robinson has kind of made this world. He built it. He built this whole new world, and using characters that we know, from other previous incarnations, he kind of made it new. He kind of made them fresh. Like this Hawkwoman, she's not like any other Hawk girl I've ever read before. Like I don't feel like I'm reading Shiera or I'm reading any of those incarnations. This is her whole new thing. This Dr. Fate is a new Dr. Fate. This is a Dr. Fate that I don't know what he's going to do in any given situation. This is a whole new person. Even the Alan Scott. Like I've read Alan Scott for years, but this is a different, Alan Scott. This is totally different. And Captain Steel, like this Captain Steel, is so. He's kind of mysterious in a way and tragic. He's always been tragic. That character of Captain Steel, but just the point of he has nothing else in his life but this. Like there's nothing else I can do. Like I'm made of steel. There's no skills that I have that could ever work in the regular world. So this is all I have. I don't care about anything else. I just don't want to stay. I don't want to be bored. I just want to stay busy. So I probably to not think about all that stuff. Even with the Atom, him working for the government and chasing after the specials and stuff. He's not a bad guy, but you kind of want to shake him up and go, you're doing the wrong thing coming after these, some of these heroes. These are heroes trying to help the world, and you're, chasing after them and wasting time. So it's just I just love the way it's built. I also appreciate the diversity in it. Like, you have people of color all in this book. There's it's not just one thing. It's a whole bunch of women in the book. There's gay men in the book. There's you have a blend of all these different spectrums of the world, and it's realistic because that's the world we live in. This world is made up of so many different people, and you get to see that in a comic book. So as a black man, I really appreciate seeing that, especially somebody who lives in New York, where I grow up around, different cultures and whatnot. So it's great to see that portrayed in a book too.
I like that it's not forced. And what I'm always a big fan of new characters and interesting characters from various different cultural backgrounds and preferences and however you want to label all that, because you're right, this is a very diverse book. But what I love about and I think it goes back to what I said in the beginning, the introduction of these characters have been so well fleshed out that we've gotten to know them along the way. There's not a character that feels like they've been tossed in here just to put this type of character in there. The characters' stories make sense for why they're here and why they're from their backgrounds and how they make the world feel real. And you're right. I like the New York reference. I think is perfect there, because we're dealing with a world that feels very much like you can see this happening in our world. And I like that. I like that the characters, like Kendra, I'm a big fan of Hawkgirl.
Oh,
and when JSA was relaunched way back when, or the first time through, where we got to see the introduction of Kendra as a Hawkgirl, I like that this character harkens back to everything I liked about her, but everything I like about the Hawkman concept in general has been kind of encompassed in this girl who has a really unique background that we don't totally know yet. Nope. And I want to know more. I care about her. I want to know more about her. I love that she feels familiar to me, but I don't know her whole story. Dr. Fate, you mentioned. I like that he has a history with Kent Nelson, the original Dr. Fate. But because of the way that this world has panned out, he wound up being the chosen one. And his story is equally interesting. And I liked seeing him take on the mantle of Dr. Fate. And I want to know more about what that challenge is going to be like for him. I think that's awesome.
It totally works. And that's what makes this book kind of special from other comics, because it has all those things and they work well together. Like James Robinson has a way of putting all this in the book, making it feel like it's natural, and you don't ever, feel like anything's been forced or anything's been, like the changes you've made with Alan Scott. That's a lot of people are not happy with that choice of changing a character that's been established. So, and then they changed it so much. But he writes Alan Scott with he gave him such humanity still, so that when you read him, you don't dislike him. You still like him. He's not the same as what you used to, but he's still a good man.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's really important, is that, you've got to make the character feel like, for those of us that have loved the concept, I don't care that they've changed Hawker. I'll use her as my example. I'm a Hawk junkie. I don't care that they've changed her. I like getting to know her. And you know what? I'm an Alan Scott junkie, too. JSA has been my team. Yeah. In all of its iterations. I think they've been the premier DC team. There's been a consistency to the output of the Justice Society comics that, with very few stumbles, the books have been consistently good, and the characters have been ones that you believe are heroes. And so for this Earth 2, I was really anticipating the writer on this one delivering newer characters, newer versions of these characters that felt familiar. I think as we're getting to know Alan Scott more, when he's brought everybody in and said, with everything they've all gone through, and the fact that he was so reluctant to be a part of a team with all of them, the fact that when they needed a place to stay, to be protected, and they needed his resources to put a spin on them as a group, everything he's doing makes sense in a modern world. I have the money and the contacts to put a positive spin on this, to change the way we're being viewed, to have us be viewed the way Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman were. I can do that for us. And while I'm doing that, you stay here in the guest rooms. Let's keep you protected.
Right.
I love that kind of stuff. I think it's great. It was a great opportunity. The Dr. Fate being there. And then the idea that they were ready to go after Hawkgirl, but before we do that, guess what? There's a constant development of stories that's going on here. I like the new Batman. I don't know what his deal is, what his backstory is. I love that they brought that character in. I'm anxious to see what they end up doing with him.
Oh, he looks so cool. Like that's another thing with this new Batman, is such a cool and mysterious Batman. Like when he comes on they don't use him a lot. Like he doesn't do it too much. He uses him just enough. He just comes out of nowhere, helps her kick butt, and then tells her something and disappears.
In the smoke. In the smoke.
Yeah. It's great.
But I want to know what his backstory is. What was he inspired by? And that's really cool. I'm anxious to see how that plays out. Steele, when he went in that underground, I liked how we got to see. This is a kid who never had the opportunity for good health. His dad's a scientist. Comes up with this way to bond this metal to him to maybe give him an opportunity for more in life, but it took something away from him too, emotionally. He is emotionally distant. He does things because he can, not because he has an emotional attachment to it. But yet at the end of the issue, I have to question that now. Because he comes out very emotional at the end in a way that it was clear Captain Steel has not felt in a long time. So what is this guy going to be like now because of what he witnessed with this, this Red Lantern?
Yeah, I don't think because before I don't think he had a sense of fear, because he's very hard to kill or to hurt. So he's not used to that. So I think he's kind of been a numb inside to things. Like he just goes on the mission, completes the mission, and goes on to the next one. But I think this is one of the first times he's ever fought a threat that has just been this, this dangerous, this lethal, and it probably will forever change his outlook.
I'm very curious to see what the backstory is with Sam's death and the link to Apocalypse. Does part of you ever wonder if maybe Sam's actually dead, or if there isn't something more there? Because now I'm starting to wonder if maybe we aren't going to see Sam again and find out there was something horrid with Sam.
I wonder that, because I mean, Sam's death was kind of a catalyst in a way for Alan Scott, So you take that away, I wonder how that would affect him.
And I'm not saying that I think that that's for sure what's going to happen with this scenario, but like Sam's thing just has me questioning constantly what's going on. Mm-hmm. And I love that. I love the idea of questioning this character, what's going on with Sam. What was his backstory? What did he do beforehand, and how's Alan going to feel about that? So let's say that the Sam isn't alive, that Sam is actually dead. But it's if Sam isn't dead, or if Sam is dead, but he did something horrible in his past that would link him to Apocalypse, how is Green Lantern going to feel about that? Yeah,
he really loved Sam and he mourned him. But yeah, how do you feel if Sam is responsible for helping, Apocalypse, who murdered not just a few, I'm talking millions of innocent people. So how do you cope with that emotionally? That somebody who you thought of as, this great person, that great enough that you wanted to spend the rest of your life with him. You asked him that you wanted to marry him. So how would you feel if you find out that this great, this person is not great anymore, and you don't have the luxury of confronting them? They're still dead.
Darrell, I want to make sure that we get a chance to shout out some of the things that are coming up on your podcast. I know we talked a little bit about them a little earlier in the show, but what do you want to let our listeners know? You are a podcaster extraordinaire, and you've got a number of really great podcasts going on. What are some things that you'd like them to know about that are coming up, like, right now?
Well, we talked about Talon and Jason and the Red Hood, and the Red Hood and the Outlaws. On Comic Book Roadshow, we actually got a chance to talk to James, the writer, about just that. The book that he's working on, especially the backups that he's been doing, and the backups that he's doing now for Batman Year Zero. So you can look for that. It's all on the Talon Network of Podcast.com, and you can find that out. We also have, if you're a fan of Thrillbent, we've recently interviewed John Rogers, who, if you tie it into DC, he was the co-writer on the Blue Beetle with Keith Giffen, and he also took over Blue Beetle for a time before they ended the book. So we got a chance to talk to him about him and Mark Waid on their creation of Thrillbent, which is a free web comics that you can get to. You just go to Thrillbent and you can read all those comics for free on any app. Like you can read it on your iPod, your iPhone, your Droid, anything that you get internet from. It actually fits to whatever thing you're using, device you're using. So it's another way of reading comics and sharing the world of comics to people who might not know much about comics at all, or who are not into webcomics. This is a good way to you could dip your toe into it. And they're doing everything from horror comics to all ages to kind of sword and sorcery comics, and at that. So you can go there. We have JK's Happy Hour, which I mentioned before, you can hear Dave Wachter talk about his Kickstarter, and that's with artist J.K. Woodward, and who kind of, from J.K., he can kind of share from someone who works in the comic industry. You can kind of get a sense of comics and the way things work from somebody who does it, on a regular basis. So that's, we do different things on that show. We have different creators on. We've had Mark Waid on. We've had, Dwayne Straczynski, who did Birds of Prey when the DC 52 started. So we have that. We have Rookie and the Geek, which is a new show that we're starting where it's me and then Amy, who is someone who's just getting into comics. She's never been into comics before. So she's, I pick books for her and we read them together and then we review them on the show. So we pick an indie book and we pick a mainstream book and we just, we discuss them. We discuss those books and you kind of can get the way we look at books that are different. The way that, because like me and you, Sean, we've read, we've been reading comics for years. So we know a lot of comic lingo. We know a lot of the continuity, and we what Superman not wearing underwear, wearing underwear. Does Superman do this? Does he what does Krypton look like, and all that kind of stuff. But she comes at it from all of this stuff is new to her, so she gets to experience it that way, and kind of she doesn't have some of those hangups that we might have because she didn't read this stuff growing up as a kid. So that's I'm having a lot of fun doing that podcast with her because I get to see it through her eyes too, and it's pretty fun to do that. When nothing's on, if you're into TV and movies, it's me and Donnie and Jim Dietz, and we go into a whole bunch of different TV shows and we review them every week. We just hit 100. So, nice. That's been a blast. I mean, 2 years of doing that, and it's just been really fun to go and talk about all the types of shows that people watch, and people send in suggestions of shows that we haven't watched or covered on the podcast. So that's been a pretty fun podcast to do, and then we got No Apologies, which has just been it's me and Chris Kazicki and Chris Campbell and Raphael, who's called into the show many times because he listens to Word Balloons too. He listens to Raging Bullets too, so he calls in. And we got Juan Castro, who's been on with you before, talking about some of the books he's doing, especially with Molly Danger, which he's inking right now, with which is Jamal's book that he's working on, and he's also doing Stormwatch right now. So you want to hear from him. He's on No Apologies. We have Tom King, who's been on too. He's a part of the show. And we just, a bunch of us, we're all buddies. We hang out, and we once a week we get on Skype, and we talk about comics, man, from anything. We talk about recent comics. We talk about older comics. We share. We all read different comics. We all have different tastes. So we talk about it, debate about it, sometimes argue about it in a fun way, which is, good to do. So it's just a fun little thing we do once a week, and it's cool. So, but all the podcasts are available. You can go straight to the website and look at and see what podcast you're into, or, pick one.
And I encourage you to go to the website because it's a great hub. You've created quite a hub there for, it's really easy to navigate, and it's cool for fans who just kind of want to get a sampling because you can see the topics of the episodes, mm-hmm. and I like listening from there. There's a lot of times where for myself, like if I'm doing work here at home, I'll open my web browser and just, fish through. And with the great part with the diverse podcasts you've got, there's always something that I'm interested in that moment. So it's really easy to just kind of like, based on my mood, click on something topic-wise that I'm interested in right from the website and just go to it from there. It works on every podcatcher and everything as well. So mm-hmm. whatever your preferred method of accessing podcasts, but the website is just I think it's a great hub for getting your feet wet into what you're doing with the podcast group over there and with the great people that you work with. So I think that I can't recommend the website enough, and I want to thank you, as always, for coming on with a great discussion. We haven't had a chance to do this in a while where we could just do, some straight comic chat with you and I, and it's been great to have you back on. And actually, I shouldn't say that. We tend to do a lot of this via Facebook. Yeah. So it was fun to be able to kind of do, this big, in-depth powwow on some of the cool comics that are out lately, because I haven't been able to talk New 52 because we've been doing the Frank Miller stuff. So it's been fun to kind of delve back into everything that's going on in the New 52.
Oh, I love it. You reminded me about, I was listening to it today again, finishing up the recent one with Batman Strikes Again, and I forgot a lot of the little stories and stuff. So you reminded me about that, and it's kind of fun to hear you and Jim talk about it again.
Well, I want to thank you again, buddy, for your friendship and support. You've been there for years, and it's a genuine friendship, and it's always great to have you on the show. So thanks again.
Well, thank you. You and Jim have always been very supportive and positive with a lot of us that do podcasts, and we definitely appreciate it. You know, and you even remind us about the things we love about comics that we kind of can forget sometimes when we get into the I don't like this and I don't like that, but you kind of remind us about what we do love about comics, and that's something that we all should appreciate about it, because this is a hobby that we love. It's a hobby that entertains us, and no matter what's going on, you know, in the world, and you know, whoever's doing whatever that you don't care for, there's still so much out there that you can appreciate and enjoy, and there's something for everybody, which is something that's really great about comics now, is that there's always something that whether you're into westerns or mysteries or capes and cowls or whatever, you can find something that you would enjoy, and it's great. It's just a great time to read comics.
Cool.
Look at those strange little beetles. They look great neutrons.
Once again, sponsoring this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Do not forget to check out the American Vampire Anthology from DCBService.com. It's a $7.99 book, 50% off, only $3.99. This is a collection of Lost Tales stories that are done by Scott Snyder, Becky Cloonan, Gabriel Ba and Fabio Moon, Jeff Lemire, Greg Rucka, and Gail Simone. At that 50% off price point, that all of a sudden takes a $7.99 book down to $3.99 and makes it a lot easier to jump on board. So please consider checking it out and doing your pre-order purchase of it that way. Over at InStockTrades.com. Remember, they're doing these really cool sales, including this 45% off sale for DC's, like Solo. I mentioned that one. This is an amazing book. It's 45% off. It's $27.49. It's a $49.99 book regularly. It features creators such as Darwin Cook, Tim Sale, on and on, Paul Pope. Each individual it's 12-issue run. Each individual issue was spotlighting a particular artist. It's just an amazing experimental volume. I can't recommend it enough. Go to InStockTrades.com and check it out. It's an amazing read. Our next episode, we're going to be doing a Green Lantern show. We're going to be joined by a friend of the show, Myron Rumsey. A friend of our show, Jamie Dunce, is going to come on, and we're going to take a look at the state of the current Green Lantern universe. We're going to take a look at the closeout of the most recent crossover, but then also take a look at the changing of the guard. What are these new titles like, and how do we feel about them? That's going to be our next episode. We will see you then.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and loss and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they then in guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see.